It's time we started thinking about some presentation for our HTML, and we do that with what's known as CSS, and that stands for Cascading Style Sheets. In Cascading Style Sheets, or CSS, we essentially write style rules for our HTML elements. You can see up here that I have some HTML written in my HTML panel. I've got a H1 element, I've got a number of paragraph elements, I've got an image element here, and I've also got a second tier heading, a H2, and I've also got some bullet points here that are written with an unordered list, and then inside the unordered list we have some list items. So let's look at writing some style rules for some of those HTML elements. Now we can target HTML elements by straight up writing down what the element is. So if I wanted to target all the paragraph elements in my HTML, all I have to do is write P for paragraph, and then the rule that I write is going to be inside these curly brackets. We call the element that we've targeted here, or what I've written, this P, is the selector. And so that selects the HTML elements. The information that I put inside these curly brackets is called our declaration, or our style declaration. So let me write a style declaration here. So for all of the paragraph elements, I'm going to make the color red. And you can see that my paragraph elements have turned to the red color. So that's pretty easy, yeah? What I've done is I've selected or targeted my P elements, and then I've created this declaration inside curly brackets that assigns the color of red to all of those HTML elements. So each declaration is headed up with a property, and my property here is color, and then I've applied a value to that color, and in this case it's red. So you can imagine that there's a wide range of values that I can apply to color. We did look at the hexadecimal color code system, for example, so we've got millions of colors that we could apply to this property of color. We can add multiple declarations to a selector, and we can do that by just adding more declarations in between these two curly brackets. Now the way that we write each of these style rules, the format of it doesn't really matter as long as we're consistent. Often when I've got lots of style rules, lots of declarations in my style rule, I'll separate them onto separate lines like this. So I can have one declaration for color and maybe one declaration for my font size, for example. I'll make it 20 pixels. I didn't really see much change there, so I might emphasize that a little bit. Yep, so our font size is now 40 pixels and our color is red. So that's our first style rule that we've written for our P tag. I might just backtrack a little bit. So in CodePen, there are some HTML elements that we don't need to write. They're kind of embedded into that HTML panel there. One of those is the body element. So the body element houses pretty much all the content of our page. But I can target the body. I'm going to write body, and that is my selector. And inside my body, I'm going to add a rule or add a declaration for the type of font that I want to use. So I'm going to say font family. I'm going to set that to Arial. You can see that all of my typography inside the body has changed to Arial. And so that gives you a sense of what the cascading means in the term cascading style sheets. So all of these HTML elements are nested inside of each other, and we can use that cascading functionality to apply rules to those nested elements, kind of from the parents down through the children and the children's children. So let's write some more rules, and we'll kind of start from the top of our HTML, and maybe we'll work through those elements that we have there. So the whole body of our HTML is set to Arial. Our H1 elements there are, you can see, default render in a larger font size and in a bold typeface. Let's make some customizations to that though. So I'm going to declare or select all of the H1 elements on my HTML. And what about we target our text transform? So text transform allows us to capitalize our typefaces, our elements. Maybe a little bit more obvious would be to apply uppercase. We can have our H1s all in uppercase. Another property that we can apply to typographic elements is text decoration. So maybe we'll add some text decoration to our H1, and we can do things like add underlines and strike throughs. I'm going to just add an underline. You can see our underline appear. And then I'm going to add a color as well. And let's apply green. So there's 256 kind of standard words that you can use for colors, but you can also use the hexadecimal values. I can't remember any off the top of my head at the moment, but I'll put one in randomly. And that's quite a white kind of, oops, there's too many letters in there. There we go, like a very pale green. I'm going to maybe go to green yellow. Very good. So I'm going to move down to our paragraph texts, our paragraph elements, and do some styling on our paragraph elements. So that's these elements in here. And I'm going to select them, add our little curly brackets, open up the curly brackets, and we'll look at kind of some of the typesetting declarations or properties that we can apply to our type. One of those is letter spacing. So I'm going to add letter spacing as my property, and I'm going to give it a value in pixels of maybe 2 pixels, and we'll see what that does. You can see that we've opened up that letter spacing there. Probably a bit too much for my liking. Something else we can add is word spacing. really open that up so that it's obvious. You can see that we've added space between our words. Line height, adjust the leading, line height. Make that really obvious as well. Well, maybe a bit more. And you can see that we're really opening up the space between our paragraphs, and line height would be the property that you'd use to get some space after each of your paragraphs. Text align is something else that we can apply. So up in our body, we could apply text align center to center all of our content in the page, like so. So that's kind of a little bit of a micro layout property. And let's move through to maybe our H2, and we'll just reiterate the process of applying or selecting. So our H2, we've selected it, and then we're going to add a declaration inside our curly brackets. So the declaration starts with our property. I'm going to change our H2 color to red, whatever you like, and you can see our H2 is turned to red. And I'm also going to add our text transform, that's right. Of uppercase. You can see that we've uppercased our headings there. Okay, so we've done some really basic styling to our HTML. What we've really done is we've looked at how we can select HTML elements in a cascading style sheet, the format of that of each of those style rules, format being the selector, and then inside the curly brackets our declaration, and inside the declaration we're going to have the value that we're going to look at, the property that we're going to look at, and then what value we're applying to that property. And so CodePen's a really great environment to test out your CSS, because you can have your HTML, your CSS all in the one place, and you can see how it renders over here in the kind of browser or the viewport, and we can save that material into our dashboards to draw out and look at later on.